Hey there. I'm back with another anime recap. So, Asahi, your average high school student, sees a TV announcement claiming he'll have an incredibly lucky birthday today. Realizing he's late, he rushes to catch the train for school. Out of nowhere, he collides with a running girl who lands on his head before dashing away. In the chaos, she forgets her underwear, which Asahi decides to hang onto on the train. He sits next to a girl who promptly falls asleep, clinging to his arm like a lifeline. Despite his best attempts to slip away, she holds on tight, causing him to accidentally topple over her in a hilariously awkward position. Naturally, she responds by kicking him in the head, so he beats a hasty retreat. As Asahi goes down the stairs, another girl slips and conveniently lands in a very peculiar position. More strange events unfold, and the girl throws a wild punch, leaving behind a banana. Seriously, she didn't need to hit him that hard on his way. Asahi spots a robot collecting litter and notices it's holding a bra, which he picks up. Suddenly, a red-haired girl storms up to him, accusing him of stealing her bra. She's super embarrassed, but before she can grab it, the robot starts dragging her away, leaving her braless, continuing to class. Asahi encounters a hyperactive dog. Smelling a trap, he tries to ignore it, but of course the dog soon targets Asahi, too. Finally reaching class, Asahi realizes he's forgotten his seat assignment. He asks his friend for help and is directed to his seat, only to find the same group of girls from earlier sitting nearby, including the purplish-haired girl who catches his eye. Despite his efforts to avoid her, he can't ignore her gaze. The teacher, one of the girls, introduces all the new students. Aoi, Ilya, Amelia, Karen, and herself named Mongfa. When Mongfa realizes Asahi is late, she playfully scolds him for being a naughty boy, trying to avoid the girl's attention. Asahi keeps his face turned towards the window. When the teacher demands he face forward, he attempts to change his appearance slightly, somehow fooling the girls. Suddenly, Aoi recognizes him from their morning encounter, startling him. He then gets slapped by all of them. Dazed, Asahi asks his friend for his name, as the slaps were so hard they wiped his memory. His friend introduces himself as Yoshi. Asahi recounts his chaotic morning with the 5 girls, making Yoshi green with envy. Meanwhile, in the background, Ilya is seen running and discreetly changing behind the lockers. The other girls also start changing, but Aoi, with a pink blush on her cheeks, says she doesn't think Asahi is completely to blame for the weird stuff that happened earlier. Aoi keeps sneaking glances at Asahi. Yoshi tells him to try clearing things up with the girls. While heading to his locker, Asahi finds a love note stuck to it, telling him to meet someone at a certain place. In a rush, he almost runs into Aoi, but manages to dodge just in time. Aoi asks about her stuff, but Asahi accidentally pulls out her red bra from his pocket, which makes her mad and she slaps him. Meanwhile, Karen shows up looking hungry, so Asahi gives her a banana to eat. Ilya is running from some dogs and hides behind Asahi, who tries to scare the dogs away by yelling at them, but they still jump on him. Later, on their way back, Asahi bumps into his teacher, who notices his wound and patches it up with a cotton ball. The teacher says sorry for thinking badly of him on the train, and Asahi forgives her. Amelia shows up asking about her bandages, and Asahi realizes he still has her bra, which he gives back to her. Amelia admits it wasn't Asahi's fault for taking it and says sorry for how she acted. Towards the end of the day, Asahi checks the note he got, which leads him to a big sakura tree. While he's there, Aoi shows up and confesses her love for him, making him blush and feel shocked as he lets go of Aoi's underwear, which had gotten stuck on a tree branch. She repeats her feelings but then spots her undergarment and runs away. Ilya comes over and barks in Asahi's ears. Then they walk away together, and she also says she loves him, but Asahi stays quiet. Suddenly their teacher runs in and drags Asahi into an alley without saying anything. She senses something bad coming and clings tightly to Asahi. Men can be seen coming in the distance. After the men leave, the teacher stays in the same spot and tells Asahi that someone is forcing her into a marriage she doesn't want. She apologizes, but he tells her there's no need to say sorry. Asahi feels confused because he thinks such a commitment should be for someone you love. The teacher insists she does love him and talks about their gender and relationship. She asks if he likes her, but he runs away. Soon after, Karen finds him and comes up to him in a wedding dress, jumping towards him. Asahi tries to ignore her and get away, while Karen reveals she's a model and can be seen on lots of billboards. Asahi wonders if her dress is for a photo shoot, but she says it's for their wedding, the wedding between Karen and Asahi, as she confesses her love for him. She takes him to a love hotel, and Asahi suggests they exchange vows first, unable to say no to having a model as his wife. He asks her to close her eyes, and as she waits eagerly, she eventually tells him to stop keeping her in suspense. But without her knowing, Asahi has already slipped away while her eyes were shut, disguised as another person. Amelia approaches Asahi and asks for his signature. He starts writing his name only to realize it's actually a document. The pesky robot shows up again and snatches Amelia's bra. When Asahi finally gets home, he finds 5 girls kneeling before him. Aoi greets him warmly, but he's so confused he shuts the door on them. The girls ask if he wants dinner, a bath, or even Amelia herself. Thinking he must be at the wrong house, they assure him it's really his place. Asahi is puzzled by their presence until he gets a message from his dad, explaining these 5 women are potential marriage candidates. His dad also mentions that one of them, Ilya, is actually a guy, but advises him not to be too picky about gender these days. His father adds that all of them will be staying with him tonight, and whether Asahi chooses to marry all of them or send them away is entirely up to him. Aoi asks about Asahi's dinner preferences, sparking an argument about what to eat. Frustrated, Asahi raises his voice, demanding that they all leave. The girls, looking sad, kneel down and explain that it's unkind to kick them out when they have nowhere else to go. They reveal they've been living in hotels until now. Asahi suggests they continue living in hotels since there's no room in the house for 5 girls. To his surprise, they reveal the house has magically been renovated in just one day, making plenty of room for everyone. Asahi argues, saying he's worried about living with girls because weird stuff could happen. The girls reassure him they wouldn't mind any weird stuff happening. The school even gave permission for the teacher to live with him, wondering if he likes them. They decide to cook a meal together and set up a table. They feed Asahi together, and he eventually decides to take a bath. Karen follows him, trying to make advances, but he quickly asks her to leave. He notices that Amelia is already in the bath and decides to leave her alone. After cautiously entering his room to make sure it's empty, he finally relaxes, only to be startled by the sight of his teacher somehow on the ceiling. Frustrated, he raises his voice, reminding them of his earlier request not to bother him and urging them to leave immediately. But realizing they had nowhere else to go, he decides to be the one to leave instead. Not knowing where to go, he resolves to seek solace under the sakura tree, the place where everything had changed. Aoi quietly approaches him from behind, revealing her long-held curiosity about the mysterious person who had touched their lives in such a profound way. Asahi, overwhelmed by anxiety, they had unknowingly overstepped their boundaries. Aoi sincerely apologizes, assuring him that they would respect his boundaries and find their own way. Moved by their words, he assured them it was fine and offered his home as their refuge. Knowing he couldn't just abandon these girls, however, he emphasized that they shouldn't interfere with his life like that anymore. Aoi promised to behave, and he responded with a soft smile, making her cry tears of relief. Meanwhile, the girls hurriedly packed their stuff, thinking they had to leave, until Asahi firmly told them they were staying. The rule was simple. They had to behave, and with that, their new life together began. Asahi wakes up to find an unexpected guest under his bed and all the locks in his room mysteriously open. To his shock, he finds Amelia using his foot to sign a marriage certificate, which makes him mad. Meanwhile, Aoi is writing people's names on the food, causing more frustration. Amelia, eager to write Asahi's name, struggles with the characters and ends up making a mess. Later, they learn there's a kanji test coming up, much to Amelia's dismay since she finds it tough. The teacher asks Karen to write a sentence on the board, and she does it perfectly, but when it's Amelia's turn, she completely messes up the phrase, displaying something embarrassing on the board. The group finds out they have a test soon, and Amelia naively thinks it'll be a breeze. When she gets home, she's bummed after losing at rock, paper, scissors and vows to find a way to always win. Amelia spends the whole night and morning strategizing, determined to master the game. Feeling confident, she bets all her puddings on the next game. She loses everything. Meanwhile, Aoi makes Asahi's lunch and chats with Yoshi, who realizes Aoi has made all of Asahi's favorite foods. Asahi wonders where Amelia is, only to find her in her room looking upset. He overhears her practicing kanji and sees the trouble she is because she's from another country. Amelia is working hard for the upcoming test, and Asahi feels the urge to help her. Together, they go to the library and practice writing kanji. Even with easy words, Amelia struggles to write the correct characters, seeing her trying so hard. Asahi asks why she's pushing herself so much. Amelia explains that she wants to succeed and communicate in his language. Overwhelmed, she runs away and locks herself in her room. Asahi follows and tries to apologize, but Amelia asks him to leave. Realizing how rude she had been, she had yelled at him, but deep down, she wanted to show her gratitude and kindness. Amelia apologizes for her behavior, and Asahi, appreciating her determination, reassures her that he wants to support her. Her efforts to learn his language make him happy, and he encourages her not to be too hard on herself. Amelia spots a gift left for her. Flashcards. Asahi made himself to help her with learning, overjoyed. She thanks him and treasures the thoughtful gesture. The other girls feel a twinge of jealousy. Knowing how meaningful Asahi's gift is, they realize that the connection between a man and a woman is something unique. As Asahi opens the door, they accidentally tumble inside. Meanwhile, Amelia decorates the house with kanji characters to fully immerse herself in learning the language. On test day, Amelia shows great improvement, making her proud of her hard work and thankful for the support she received. One day, Ilya flashes back to when her dad tried to force her to be a boy, even though she was born a girl and wanted to stay that way. Behind Ilya, Asahi opens the door and they lock eyes in surprise. Asahi apologizes and shuts the door, not embarrassed because he thinks Ilya is a boy, but since Ilya is actually a girl, she screams in embarrassment. Aoi, Ilya, and Mingfa find a game with a hot spring vacation for 2 as the grand prize. They all decide to play, with Ilya going first and snagging first place. Now, we see all of them heading to the hot spring, so somehow Aoi and Mingfa also won first place. They arrive at the hot springs. Feeling a bit weirded out, though Amelia is thrilled, Mingfa reassures them it'll be fine once they go inside. But it gets even stranger with a giant welcoming them. The giant asks how to arrange the rooms, and Amelia says they should all stay in one room. But Asahi interrupts, suggesting separate rooms for boys and girls, meaning Asahi and Ilya together, and the rest of the girls together. In their room, Ilya feels awkward since he's technically not a boy. He tries to make an excuse, saying he snores loudly and grinds his teeth when he sleeps. But Asahi says it's okay and gives him a playful slap on the butt, making Ilya feel weird. Karen and Amelia then come in, asking them to play table tennis. They all start playing and have fun. Ilya is still feeling awkward, but when Asahi asks what's wrong, he brushes it off. Karen teases Mingfa, saying she should back down since she's older and must be getting tired. Mingfa responds with a super hard hit, sending the ball bouncing all over the room, hitting Asahi between the legs and shredding Karen's clothes. Asahi collapses from the pain. Later that night, they all have dinner together. Amelia jokes about eating sushi off a naked person at a hot spring, and Asahi looks confused and says no. The giant then appears and says they don't offer that, but he can bring a tongue platter, which is a bunch of fruit. He then explains that a creature called a tengu has been living in this hot spring for ages. Amelia asks what a tengu is, and Mingfa says it's a mythical being from Japanese folklore, and that monks training in the mountains sometimes turn into tengus. Aoi then points out illustrations of a tengu. The giant shares that one of his ancestors, many generations ago, saw a tengu at this very hot spring. "Protect my sacred ground," the tengu had said. The giant notes that no one believes the story these days, and Karen agrees, saying it sounds ridiculous. They head to the baths, with Asahi taking Ilya to the men's side. Ilya, being a girl, panics at the thought of Asahi discovering her secret if she undresses. She tells him to stop slapping her butt, but as Asahi apologizes, Ilya realizes he's already undressed and looks away in embarrassment. Ilya desperately looks for a way to conceal her identity and spots a tengu mask on the wall. Meanwhile, in the girls' room, Karen teases Aoi about hiding a lot under her clothes and then points out Mingfa. In the midst of this, Amelia gets flustered, feeling self-conscious about her own size. Asahi wonders what's taking Ilya so long, and she emerges wearing the tengu mask and a towel, trying to appear more masculine. Asahi calls her a fine specimen. He questions why she's also hiding her chest, and Ilya makes the excuse that her body is very hairy. Ilya tells Asahi to stop staring at her so much, and he apologizes. Asahi then offers to scrub Ilya's back. When he stands up, he gets embarrassed because of their size difference and covers himself up. As Asahi washes her back, he remarks that Ilya isn't hairy at all and is actually silky smooth. Ilya stands up abruptly, saying she'll wash his back now. Feeling mortified, she quickly ends the scrubbing session. In the girls' bath, Yui and Mongfa relax while Amelia washes up and Karen tries to peek into the men's bath to see Asahi. Ilya and Asahi enter the sauna, and Ilya already wants to leave, but Asahi, trying to be macho, says the heat is nothing. Determined to keep up appearances, Ilya decides to endure the sauna. Asahi starts feeling dizzy and is about to suggest leaving when he sees Ilya. He praises Ilya as a true man among men and runs out. Ilya then heads to the open-air bath, but her towel gets blown away by a gust of wind. Asahi, thinking she's still in the sauna, decides to go to the open-air bath. Back at the girls' bath, Karen and Amelia make progress in their mission to peek into the men's bath. They finally catch a glimpse of Asahi walking out. They all then see Ilya posing as the Tengu. Terrified, they run away. Asahi runs to Ilya, telling her that the Tengu is here. Ilya manages to get back just in time to avoid suspicion. She then slips on a bar of soap and knocks herself out cold, with Asahi discovering she's a girl. When she comes to in her room, she realizes Asahi knows her secret. He apologizes, admitting he didn't realize she was a girl, but Ilya also apologizes, saying it's her fault for pretending to be a guy. She asks if Asahi is mad at her for acting like a dude, but he reassures her, saying she must have had her reasons. She then reveals that her father's dying wish was to have a son. So ever since she was born, he told her to live her life as a boy. Asahi then asks what she prefers, living as a boy or a girl, and Ilya breaks down, saying she wants to be her true self and live as a girl. Asahi tells her that's perfectly fine and to be herself from now on. She then gets a flashback of Asahi as a child giving her the same supportive smile. Asahi says he's going to bed now and tells her to get some rest. She thanks him for everything. The next day, as they're leaving the hot springs, they talk about seeing the Tengu, and Ilya gets embarrassed. Back at school, Ilya starts dressing as a girl and her classmates adore it. Asahi's friend Yoshio remarks on the surprise of Ilya being a girl, but Asahi informs him her real name is Irina. Asahi's teacher, Meng Fa, tells him his necktie is loose and fixes it for him while Yoshio watches enviously. In class, Yoshio tells Asahi he's lucky their teacher is so attentive. Amelia is disgusted by Yoshio's comments, and Karen teases, asking why he likes Meng Fa when there's a young model like herself right there. Yoshio says Meng Fa has that cool and capable lady vibe. At home, Meng Fa is getting drunk. Aoi tells Meng Fa to take it easy, then hugs her randomly. Irina tells Meng Fa that she's being inappropriate. Meng Fa tells Asahi to fix it, causing him to spit out his drink and say she should do it herself. She then goes to hug him, but Karen holds her back, then hugs her too. Then Irina, then Amelia, then Aoi again. Meng Fa declares her love for them all and falls asleep, and Asahi puts her to bed. Asahi goes to his room and tells Amelia to cut it out. What the heck? Suddenly, a man stands up and tells Asahi he's coming with him, then knocks Asahi out. He wakes up to see the man on a screen saying that Asahi is bait to lure a certain girl. A big explosion happens, and the man says, I guess she's already here. While Asahi is still trapped, Meng Fa then finds him and starts taking pictures, saying he looks cute. Meng Fa gives her clothes and says, let's go. Asahi asks why everyone is on the ground, and Meng Fa says they must have fallen asleep. They then see a man still awake, who charges at them. But they handle him quickly. Another guy shows up and they easily handle him too, wrapping him up like a burrito and knocking his head. They sprint to the elevators only to find they're not working. Meng Fa announces she needs to fix it in the control room. She starts analyzing the building layout and realizes it's on the 10th floor. She says, let's head there. But when they arrive, the door is locked. Meng Fa says she has an idea and dangles off the side of the building with a rope. Breaking into the window with Asahi, she starts programming on the computer and fixes the issue. Suddenly, a trapdoor opens and a man emerges, shedding the sheets covering him. It's the main villain, causing Meng Fa to panic. She asks who he is, and the man starts calling her the Bloody Tiger, making Meng Fa even more worried. He explains Meng Fa was once a feared woman, now a joke, and charges at her. She blocks and slams him against the wall. He rants about an agent who struck terror into the underworld. Bloody Tiger, which is Meng Fa. Years ago, his team was wiped out by her, and now he's here for revenge. He charges again, and she gets slammed into the wall. He tries to crush her, but she dodges. He then says, I guess I'll take what's most precious to you, and walks toward Asahi. She jumps at him but gets blocked, then manages to land a hit, but he grabs her leg. Meng Fa tells Asahi to hit the switch. Asahi goes to hit it and the bed starts spinning. The man gets wrapped up and tied to the bed, and Meng Fa lands a punch on him, telling Asahi to come. She tells the man the string is made from a special material and he'll never break free. The string tightens as the bed spins, eventually choking him as Meng Fa and Asahi run out. Asahi presses the elevator button, and Meng Efe notices Asahi is hurt, but he says it's not serious. She tears off some of her clothes and wraps them around his wound. Meng Efe apologizes, saying it's all her fault. She reveals she was destined for a life of destruction. It was all for her missions, and she thought it was okay. But at some point, she questioned, "What am I doing?" She left the organization she worked for and chose to become a teacher, where she could build futures instead of destroying them. She says it was hilarious, the first real affection she ever felt, making her feel like a person. But today, it all ends for her. She steps into the elevator, promising to always protect Asahi. As the elevator descends, several armed men await her. She begins to take them down one by one, eventually grabbing a gun from one of them and turning the tables to her advantage. She defeats all the baddies around, and Asahi steps out of the elevator, asking if she's all right. She points out there are more ahead, instructing him to escape. Asahi asks if she's coming too, but she just urges him to go. Asahi refuses, but she fires a shot beside him, emotionally insisting he'll only get in her way. Asahi bolts, thinking about her, while Meng Efe keeps fighting. She finishes off the rest and stumbles out, collapsing on the floor, tears streaming down her face. Suddenly, she hears a window shatter, and the main villain from earlier leaps down. She tries to shoot him, but his armor renders it useless. He extends his robotic arm, pinning her to the wall and says playtime is over, asking how he should torment her. A fire extinguisher then flies in, freeing Meng Efe. The villain turns to see Asahi and calls him a brat. Asahi charges, only to be instantly slammed to the ground. Asahi declares that he won't let the villain lay a hand on Meng Efe anymore, triggering a flashback for her of a similar moment in the past. The villain strides towards Asahi, grabs his clothes to lift him up, but only ends up with a handful of slippery clothes, as Asahi is covered in lotion. Asahi then throws a lotion balloon at the villain and presses an electrical stick to his body, making him sizzle with electricity. Asahi tells Meng Efe that now is the time, and she charges at the villain, delivering a powerful punch that sends him crashing into the wall. Defeating him, Meng Efe asks Asahi if he's hurt, but he says he's fine, just a bit sticky and gross. She asks why he came back, and he says he didn't want to go home without her. He then says her past doesn't matter to him. He knows her as the teacher he loves and someone who is part of his family, making her tear up and hug him tightly. Asahi extends his hand and says let's go home now. The others are probably waiting for them. The following morning, Asahi's alarm goes off, but he's not in his room. Karen comes home, walks in, and is shocked by what she sees. The rest of the girls walk in, ask what's wrong, and then all see Asahi sleeping on Meng Efe. That night, Asahi goes to a store and sees a magazine with Karen on the cover. He checks out his groceries and walks out, looking at his phone. He then looks up and sees a flying machine staring at him, and it starts charging up something aimed at him. The machine suddenly explodes, and he looks up to see a magical girl who is Karen, although Asahi doesn't recognize her. At school, he tells his friend Yoshio that he saw a magical girl, but Yoshio makes fun of him. Karen then approaches Asahi and says, "Let's make love together in bed," causing both boys to spit out their drinks. She says spitting out drinks is gross, but Asahi retorts that it's her fault for saying something so weird. Karen claims that in a love story, everything happens suddenly, and since she's in love with him, it's fine. She hugs him and complains that he's getting too lovey-dovey with the other girls, mentioning that she found Meng Efe and Asahi in a weird position yesterday. Making Yoshio jealous, Asahi insists it's all a misunderstanding, glancing back at Karen, but her expression remains serious as she peers out the window. The other classmates also look out, perplexed, as a colossal machine hovers in the air. Yoshio shows Asahi a news report, where the reporter speculates that the object could be of extraterrestrial origin, similar to others seen globally. Meng Efe urgently directs everyone away from the window for safety. Suddenly, a machine swoops down, targeting Asahi and Yoshio. It fires a projectile and Meng Efe shoves Asahi aside, but Yoshio gets hit. A device wraps around him and explodes. Asahi rushes to check on Yoshio, only to realize he's now missing his manhood, leaving him looking more like a girl down there. Panic ensues as machines attack the school and city, leaving everyone bewildered about what's next. Stay tuned to find out the next part. See you next time.